All right, good afternoon, folks. It's Dave Carter here with Flower Hill Institute. We're going to wait just a minute here for folks to filter in from the waiting room, and then we'll get started. All right, I think we'll go ahead and get started with the roundtable today. I'm Dave Carter with Flower Hill Institute, and the hidden gentleman is Chris Roper. He's actually driving. He was at an event in North Carolina over the weekend and driving back to Missouri through some storms right now, but he'll be off camera as we go forward. Really pleased to have Marshall and Sean this afternoon to talk to us about direct marketing, direct to consumer marketing. But first of all, just a couple of housekeeping items. This is being recorded and it will be on our website, the Flower Hill Online Toolkit archive. So if there's someone that wasn't able to come today, they can download it and watch it. We'll also be sending you a quick survey after this session. It's a two question survey. Number one is, what did you think of the session today? And number two, what suggestions do you have for us to do for future roundtables? And then um, as we go along, be sure and type any questions that you have into the Q&A. I will be monitoring those. Nicole Mass, she's the wizard behind the screen doing the logistics on this. So the two of us will be monitoring the questions and try and pass those along to Sean and Marshall as we go forward. So um, anyway, so we have got this covered from north to south. We've got Marshall Bartlett with Home Place Pastures in Mississippi and Sean Grace with North Star Bison in Wisconsin. And first of all, Marshall, Sean, give a quick introduction and let people know who you are and a little bit about your operation. Go ahead, Marshall.
All right, thank you, Dave. As Dave said, I'm in Como, Mississippi. I'm on my generational family farm, dating back to the mid 1870s. I'm the fifth generation to farm here. I moved back after college and living in New Orleans for a little while about 11 years ago and started my own business here on my family farm, which is called Home Place Pastures. My focus at that point was pastured pork. We've since added grass-fed beef, and sort of the linchpin of that business model from transitioning my farm from input intensive row crops, cotton, corn, and soybeans that I grew up doing with my dad to a regenerative grazing model. I really thought that there was, I could produce animals on the farm, and there were other farmers that were interested in regenerative grazing and kind of tapping into a premium market. And then there was obviously a growing consumer base that was interested in higher quality meat and where their meat was coming from, whether it was the health of the meat, the ethical treatment of the animals, or just being able to trust where it was coming from. In order to connect that supply chain and that demand, the big bottleneck there was the USDA processing facility. So I built one on the farm. Pretty naive going into that of what it was going to require, capital, work, management, skill, knowledge wise, and have been learning a lot of hard lessons for the last decade and steadily expanding that facility from the very inadequately sized and designed original one that I built here. But anyways, through that journey, we were doing a lot of food service early on. Obviously, during COVID, this happened to a lot of us. We pivoted more to direct to consumer and are now really focused on scaling an e-commerce business. And we added a big freezer and got some grants through the MPPEP program to be able to scale into that side. So the online, we still do a lot of wholesale, but the online sales is a growing part of what we do. And we operate a little butcher shop and restaurant here on the farm as well.
Very good. And Sean?
Yeah, I'm Sean Grace with North Star Bison up here in Rice Lake, Wisconsin. Yeah, I grew up here on, I guess our home place, our home ranch. Been here 30 years of my 38 years of existence. So this is pretty much what I know, passionate about, you know, hunting and that kind of thing as well. And went off and did that out west for a few years, and came back here a few years ago to kind of, as my transitioned out, we're second generation, and my sister and I are now at the helm. And started out with bison, and still our flagship product. But early on, just as Marshall had indicated, there's a real gap between the pasture and the plate, and the processor is the thing we needed to solve. Nobody in our area was able to or willing to process and meet our needs, and to the degree that we wanted them, and also to yeah, the I guess the quality aspects, you know, and we harvest very uniquely. So we took control of that aspect, the processor, in 2005, and now we since own another further fabrication facility and our order fulfillment facility. So we have two processing plants. But it's, yeah, that's the driver is our brand, and trying to, now we meet the needs. We have a custom processing business as well. And one of our plant services, a lot of small farmers that were just as we were 25 years ago, you know, just getting started and doing a few head here and there. So yeah, had to learn the processing side, got in on the ranching side, and also the, you know, the customer service side, and just pretty much had to dive in and figure out how to do the processing side. And it's a steep learning curve. But there's a lot of value in trying to figure that out. So our business has always been direct to consumer oriented, through basically the 2010s. We were majority wholesale. We had a lot of volume going through wholesale, and in the end of February of 2020, made a goal of shifting more towards consumer direct, and 3 weeks later COVID hit, and that instantly flipped our business, and we've been predominantly consumer direct since. But it's a unique business model with a lot of value and benefit to the consumer as well as to the brand, and there's a lot of incentive there to figure out how to do it well. So hopefully I can offer something.
Let's just tag on that. Yeah, when you talk about the benefit, you know, for both of you, what have you seen? Because you both have had experience in wholesaling and working with distributors and direct to consumer. What are the benefits of your direct to consumer marketing emphasis?
So you want to
Go ahead, Sean. You can tackle it first. Yeah, yeah.
Sounds good. Yeah, so I think for us, you know, a lot more than the margins are, obviously you're able to step on that gap between production cost and the shelf price, right? And you kind of get to drive that shelf price yourself. Obviously there's reality that you have to live within, but everybody does things uniquely, you know, to their operation and the way that they care for their animals, and you get to tell that story, and you get to sell that story. So that's something that's really unique about consumer direct, is the ability to set your price point and kind of set the bar of value for your brand and your product, and make sure that you're getting paid for what you're doing. The other aspect that I think is unique to the brand itself is the skin to skin contact that you have with consumers. You're not dealing with buyers and behind the curtain kind of people. You don't have layers of distance between you and what people are truly caring about, you don't get that feedback. And so we have everyday conversations, multiples a day, and you know, through you know, the course of a week, you get to talk to a lot of people, and really hear what matters to them. There's some commonalities and things that you can pick up on that's like, okay, this is core, this is unique to the marketplace, and this is a way that I can serve that's not currently being served, because consumers are telling me. We have the internet now, you can, you know, find something in 3 seconds flat if it's out there. And so if you're not able to find it in 3 seconds, it most likely doesn't exist. at least, within reach to them. So I think that's something that's really valuable, is just the ability to be relevant in the marketplace.
And Marshall, you were talking yesterday about telling your story and building that. Sean talked about that a little bit, but yeah, talk about how you've approached that.
Yeah, I think the value proposition is more meaningful when you're connecting with the end consumer who's feeding this with their, to their family. They're making a choice to invest in something that means a lot to them if you can really show that value. Whereas if you're going into like food service, a chef that's going into another low margin business model, and then they're having to tack something on top of it and put it. So it's just really challenging for that to be supportive of the type of work that Sean and I are doing. But when we can connect directly to that end consumer and they see the value in our product, whether it's the quality that they're interested in or trusting the production practices or, the ethical treatment of the animal or just supporting small and local, there's all these different kind of tenets of what we do that resonate with folks. And if you can really hone in on that, on what your unique is to that market, you can drive so much more value and you have more pricing elasticity in that model. And to me, there's two other really critical components. One is just a very practical financial consideration that the cash flow is just, you get paid before you even ship the damn product, and it's like, it's great, very cash forward. Whereas wholesale is a total cash suck. You gotta get the volume out, you gotta produce the product, you gotta get it on the truck, you gotta ship it all the way out there. Then you wait 30 days. Hopefully, you get paid in 30 days. So for really small companies with no cash reserves, that can be really, really challenging. So I think that those two things are really important. And then finally, being able to bake in the distribution cost. Should have no qualms about the fact that it's very expensive to ship product in insulated boxes on dry ice or gel packs to, through UPS or FedEx to the end consumer. But you can more effectively bake that in than you can in a wholesale distribution model where it's like you're fighting over pennies. It's really hard to do that. So I think all of those aspects of it make it very appealing. The challenge, which I guess I don't want to get ahead of myself, there's a lot of challenges associated with it as well that we can discuss later, but those are definitely big advantages.
Well, yeah, let's talk about the challenges. When we were having our conversation yesterday to plan this, both of you talked about the nose to tail inventory management and unit economics, which is something that we touched on a couple of weeks ago in a roundtable with David Zarling from the Niche Meat Processing Assistance Network. But um, anyway, the talk about how you approach that, how you manage your nose to tail inventory. Go ahead, Marshall.
Yeah, so as kind of mission-driven farmers who run a plant, obviously we got to sell it from the rooter to the tutor, as we like to joke. So the SKUs that we get off that carcass are not. That's what nature gives us. It does not match consumer demand. So there's always a mismatch there that you're fighting. So if you're going to go with a subscription model, which there's a ton of opinions out there about this, and we've been fighting a lot about this internally. I just think that a subscription model is a really powerful tool. There's subscription fatigue. It's going to affect your conversion rates, whatever. But, the customer doesn't want to subscribe. But there's no doubt that the data indicates that if someone does subscribe, they're going to spend more money with you in a given amount of time. You're going to get a higher, what they call LTV or lifetime value out of that customer. So anyway, if you're building that model, you've got to be able to set up some kind of subscription packet that balances that carcass inventory. You can't just let them buy all fillets, for example. So then it starts to be like, okay, what product are we actually trying to put out there and how are we going to build this? And then how can we leverage those other products that we can't just have all the time that are a lower percentage of the carcass that people still like as sort of an add-on upsell type thing. So that's how we've approached it. Another advantage of going subscription instead of just a la carte. A la carte, you can set your inventory on Shopify or whatever platform you're using. So as you sell out of something that it can be out of stock and you can add it as you get it. With the subscription, it has to be available all the time, but you can kind of forecast what your orders are going to be. You don't know what your new orders are going to be, but you can kind of see what your existing are and kind of plan out a little bit of inventory that way. But it's super challenging to do that. And so we try to use like main parts of the carcass. And then obviously a lot of grind goes in those packets to to balance that, and then use your extra inventory to leverage that as a product offer to get people to commit or to convert. So all those things are really important strategies to managing that inventory, kind of connecting it to the carcass model, which is really critical for us.
Great. And Sean, yeah, when we talked about you're always going to have something you're long on. You're going to have some inventory that you don't want to just to sit in the freezer or the cooler. What are some of the approaches that you take on that?
Yeah, we think about this, as far as the whole carcass utilization. Try to educate customers, I guess, first and foremost, the value of why they should be eating nose to tail nutritionally, and also as a steward of the animals that they're purchasing from. This isn't we're trying to, I guess, educate them and help them along in that process to understand, the reason of why they're buying things, and they can be a little bit more motivated in the kitchen to figure out how to use something, because they owe it to the animal, and they owe it to. You're not going to get more fillets if you can't eat, all the grind or all the round or what have you that you're a little bit long on. So I think, as far as nothing exists in nature, as we're talking about regenerative models and things like that. There's monocultures are a terrible thing. Everything needs balance. Everything needs diversity, right? And so when we're looking at balance, is in your business model, there's a lot of good from a wholesale model. There's good from a direct consumer model as well. The wholesale model, I think every business should have some wholesale to some degree to be able to help balance your inventory. There's a shelf life to what we're producing. There's also cash stock, tied up in that product. So the faster that you can turn, even if you're not necessarily making thick margins, the ability to reinvest that into another animal is a big deal. So having balance, the key to, I think, some of that aspect, is not necessarily being so bought in on one sales channel, because it's, if you're 100% direct to consumer, you're going to be inevitably long on certain aspects of that product or that animal that isn't getting fully utilized. So the marriage of the two, but being acceptable, you have to be acceptable on the wholesale side, right? And then you have to be exceptional on the direct to consumer side. If you're going to flourish in both categories and have basically a well-balanced machine, you don't have to necessarily be, basically pick your poison, so to speak, on your sales channel that you feel your strengths serve the best. But I think there's value in being acceptable at the other as well, and making sure that that you're balanced in your sales channels, and you can pull those levers when you need to turn inventory or reinvest cash or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, very good. We're already getting some go ahead, Marshall. Yeah, you add on to that.
Yeah, just one quick note on that. I think if you're in a position where you don't own your own plant, you can really hone in on your sales channel optimization. But if your sales business is chained to an ops business, like a brick and mortar, high debt service, labor cost, overhead, then the wholesale gives you the volume, and the retail or the direct to consumer hopefully gives you the margin. So it just depends on your context. If you're hiring out, if you're processing somewhere else and you're a farm, I would definitely recommend going as much direct to consumer as you can. It's just all about your context and what your business model is and what your cost structure is.
Very good. Great. Excellent point. So, yeah, we've got a couple of questions that are coming in. Nick Burgess is asking, how many head do you have to process a day or a week to make your business model work? What's sort of the minimum?
I'll let you know when I get there. I hadn't hit it yet. We're trying to do right now. I have 17 hourly guys, including sanitation, working in my plant, and we're trying to hit 44 beef equivalent units. You have to kind of translate your animal units to a universal. So we use the beef unit, which is 2.5 hogs for me. Some plants do 3, some plants do 2. It's somewhere in there. So about 44 animal use. So that's about 60 hogs and 20 cattle a week. Is kind of our break even, and we're bumping up against that now, which is exciting, but we really need to be doing more volume to be succeeding and building value. But I think that really depends on the size of your plant and your staff. I don't know, like Sean, I'm sure you guys are doing higher volume than that.
Sean, how do you guys look at
Yeah, I
that?
mean,
Yep.
yeah, I mean, that's a very similar number to what we look at. We have 2 plants, and one of them is we do a lot of slaughter only for other small plants as well in our kill plant, and then we do the other further fabrication plant. We have sausage facility, smokehouse, RTE, and then order fulfillment as well. And so they're a little bit nuanced in that way that we're capturing more depth of the value chain, I guess. But yeah, as far as the volume, I mean, your numbers are very similar to ours, is what we see, and I think that's going to probably be pretty universal. Just because of the nature of the business, you have to have sanitation, you have to have all the equipment to be able to do, whether you're doing 1 pound or 1,000,000 pounds. You still have to have, every link in the chain, right? And or you don't have a chain. So I think you have to have HACCP, you have to have all these aspects of the process, and then you have to figure out a way to be able to bury those overheads and capitalize on the have-to-haves with volume. So.
I'll expand the question that Jessica's asking, which is how do you drive business to your website? But talk a little bit about the importance of your website, and you're building your store. How do you build your store and drive business to it?
Yeah, I guess maybe start since I just was talking again. Yeah, driving, I mean, thinking about the way that we think about our website, I guess, is obviously you have to have a clean and an inviting place for people to be. It's not too dissimilar from a brick and mortar. It's just a virtual version of that. So thinking about that as a clean and organized, appealing, place to be, to hang out, to buy your meat. It has to, every aspect has to tell the story of who you are and what you do, in an appealing, inviting, intriguing way. That's kind of I guess, speaking to the aesthetics. One thing that we had talked about yesterday is I think a common mistake that you see people make is they want to differentiate themselves in ways that aren't necessarily value to the consumer. We think we're all extremely unique, so our website needs to be extremely unique and function in a way that is super interesting, and I think that's a trap that a lot of people, like I said, fall into. And what we've learned is basically try to mimic the best sales channels. I'll throw out Amazon for one example. Try to mimic as much as possible the buying experience of Amazon, so people don't have to think about where to find things or how to check out or anything like that. It's just it's a very seamless, easy buying experience, something that's familiar to them, whether they're buying meat or socks. It's the same process. So don't overcomplicate that, but tell your story in a way that's really appealing, and then put yourself in places where there's high traffic online. There's the corner of happy and healthy, as Walgreens says. Can you find places on the internet or in social media that's the corner of happy and healthy, and stake your claim there? Obviously, it costs a little bit to be there. And it's constantly evolving, I guess, and you have to manage that as well, what your ad spend is. But yeah, it depends on also, what if you're in a startup phase and you're trying to just get exposure and invest in the future, or if you're just existing, and servicing your existing business and are on a slow growth path. It's so tailored to the individual, but I think that's kind of some constants that no matter who you are, where you're at, those are things that you definitely want to keep in mind.
Yeah, I think Sean, that's such a good point. The way this is so deeply personal for all of us, and we're driven by something beyond, monetary interest. I would assume if you're getting in the space, I would hope, or you're going to be pretty disappointed. So you have to really exit that kind of part of your ego and just think pretty clearly as like what makes sense for my customer. You have to be constantly thinking about it from the customer standpoint. And the reality of the situation is we're farmers, processors, mission driven meat producers. There are people that have so much more knowledge and resources and just millions dumped into this space that have designed websites that you can just go visit and emulate. And you just bypass all of that work that they've done and copy a pretty like Amazon is, probably the biggest example of that, obviously. So you just want what we call the UX or the user experience to be very seamless to check out and just make it very clear what the customer wants to do. And I would also just add to that, don't just go pay someone to like build you a website. Just do not go out there to the space and find some consultant and say, I want you to build me an e-commerce website. You're gonna spend so much money. You got to put in the work to figure out what exactly you want, what your product is going to be, how you want it set up. You're going to have to do a lot of that thinking and work for you. And then you contract out very specific aspects of that plan that you want done. Like, hey, I want you to make this, like, here's the layout that I want. I want the cart to appear here. I want this add-on page to work like this. You just don't go ask for like a full suite, like build me an e-com website. I mean, you can do that, but you're going to spend a lot more money. You just don't want to pay people to do certain parts of your thinking for you. I think that that's good business advice in general. So you're going to have to figure some of this stuff out yourself, but it's not rocket science and just copy other people. And as far as getting traffic, I think all Sean's points are great. We're still trying to figure this out. It's obviously part of the game, but before you start spending any money to get people to your site, which is a big step, you actually start paying to promote stuff to get people driven to your site, you need to make sure that user experience is very dialed in. You've got some automated messaging through an email chain, like a cart abandonment, a first time login. You've got some way to kind of monetize that visit and capture that data. And you have a pretty good funnel to get them to convert. Because if you don't have any of that set up and you start paying to get people to your website, you're just pissing your money away. And I think the most important aspect of that, Sean probably knows more about this than I do, but what we're really focused on is getting someone's email address, because you build that email list and that's a very valuable asset in your marketing toolkit. And email is cheap and it's very effective. So I think before you start spending money to get people to your site, you need to make sure you've got all those other foundational things down as far as the product, the messaging, the user experience, a pretty seamless journey to check out and a way to get their information so you can continue to use it to try to sell them something down the road.
Yeah, I think one thing that's worth calling out on that too specifically is, if your friends aren't telling their friends, you're probably missing the mark some way, somehow. If you want to, what do you want to say, cause exponential growth, you can pour some fuel on the fire, but there should be a fire burning already, or you need to go back to the drawing board and make sure you have product that's of quality, that's shareable. We always talk about that around here. Is this, would someone share this, whether it's an email or a product? Would someone go and make the effort to share this with someone because it's a gift? And if it's not that, then we got to go back and do some more work on it.
Good. And then Doug has got a question here that'll segue into the shipping topic. Marshall, you talked about it briefly, but Doug says, he's doing shelf stable products so far, but even that shows how unreliable UPS, FedEx, USPS are. We want to start selling perishable products. So, do you have some advice on, we talked about the boxes, the gel packs, dry ice, and where you put that shipping cost into your website? You talked yesterday when we were talking about, don't let that be the last thing that pops up before they check out. So, Sean, you're still on camera, so go ahead. You can tackle it first here.
That's good. Yeah. We talk about everybody's going to have a bit of a sticker shock. If you're producing products for the same price as Walmart, you're probably losing money. I'll just say that. So price is not the primary driver for people and why they're going to be shopping on your site. And so there's going to be a level of sticker shock there. And it's best to not be ashamed of that, get that out front. and build a lot of your cost, I guess, right into that, bake that right in, your shipping costs and things like that, bake that right into the price of your product, add some margin on, and to absorb that, and then on the back end have minimal shipping cost. As far as shipping fees, we try to incentivize people to order a certain volume, because these boxes are not cheap and the dry ice is not cheap. It doesn't matter if you're sending a pound or 100 pounds, you still need the same amount, relatively the same amount of dry ice, and the cost of the box and the labor to pack it is pretty similar. So those are fixed overheads that you need to vary basically with volume. Not too dissimilar from processing. The more volume you can pack in that box and spread your overheads, the better off you'll be on an average order value margin standpoint. So we always try to say, let's throw that sticker price on the homepage and not the checkout page. So people expect to pay a little bit for shipping. If everything's 100% free, that's a little bit of a honestly, a little bit of a red flag. That's almost too good to be true for consumers. We found that too. So they expect to pay a little bit, but a very reasonable rate in their mind. That's like, oh, that's not bad at all. I can, have that shipped to my door for X dollars. I can swing that. So that's kind of just some things that we found in the checkout experience, I guess, that's helped improve our conversion rate.
Yeah, I mean, getting the unit economics down and your packaging costs down or something we were not very good at starting out, and we're getting better at it. So you got to really be careful that you're protecting yourself there. And then if you're selling by the spec weight, if you don't have a variable weight in there, you also got to think, like, if you're selling a pound of ground beef at this amount and it's just 0.1, if it's 1.1 on average and your spec variance, you're giving away 10% of your margin, So like those spec variances can really, you got to bake that in somewhere. I mean, what we're trying to do, I can't really come up with a way to ship a box for less than about $160, $170 and be able to pay the shipping and get my margin out of it. It's just kind of an entry level fee. Some people do it. They're probably just better at it than we are. But I mean, for us, a 12-inch cube with the liner and the insulator and the dry ice and some labor dedicated to it, the box and the shipping, we're about $45 all in on all that. So, and that comes down with volume with your shipping, but some of those other costs are just, they are what they are. So then if you're trying to make about $45 to $50 gross profit off of that box, you got to think about that too. I mean, in an ideal situation, if you're starting small, someone that knows a lot more about the space than me said, you want to make your money back on the acquisition on the second order. So if the lifetime value of the customer, if they're making 4 or 6 orders a year, whatever, and it costs you through whatever marketing you're doing, let's say you're making $45 a box gross profit. It costs you $80 to get that customer through whatever system. We can get into all of that. That's kind of a more complicated side of the marketing plan, but so it costs you $80 to get them. You make $45 off the first box. You're still in the hole. The second time they order, you've made $10 off that customer, right? And then you hope that they continue to order for as long as possible and tell other people about it. So you just got to bake in a lot of that stuff that when you're just getting into it and you got your little spreadsheet up and you're like, oh, I can sell it for this. You can really screw that up on the front end and undervalue what you're doing, and then get kind of just really kind of kicked in the rear with a lot of these costs that you didn't understand getting into it. So I think that's really important to keep in mind.
Sean,
I
what
think
do you figure
another
your
thing,
overhead cost? Yeah.
I was just going to say one thing that's really sneaky, and like I said, we're 26 years, I guess, into the shipping business now, and we're still learning stuff. I mean, there's an evolution on the shipping side as we've been through some what do you want to say, some economic challenges here the last couple of years with inflation, and shipping companies are trying to find ways to they're highly incentivized, right, to maintain their margins and their service, and it's costing them more to operate, and they find really, really, really crafty ways to get their money. At the end of the day, it's this, but you sign an agreement based on that, and then and things will shift throughout the year in ways that you didn't anticipate. And this just last year, I guess, both of the major shippers just a week before it went live, their peak surcharges, and the cost of shipping a box from basically Thanksgiving through the first of the year. Actually, it's like the 16th, I think, of January, something like that, is exponentially higher. So our strategy, I guess, going forward, and this is maybe a little bit of insider secret stuff, but our strategy going forward is to be able to hedge. We got kind of surprised by it a little bit this year. We had quantified it, and they shrunk their service map. So now all of a sudden, instead of shipping a 2-day ground, it had to go 2-day express to get there in 2 days, and the cost differential on that is extreme. The customer didn't pay for it up front. We ate it. We found out on the shipping invoice on the back end. So that's the game changed literally overnight, and UPS or FedEx, neither one of them had a service map to be able to say, well, this is exactly how it's going to impact your delivery zone, how much it's going to shrink or change or whatnot. So learning experience, it's tuition, and we survive it, and you move on, but you don't make that mistake again the next year. But basically, no, that's a new thing on the landscape, and it's not going away. They kind of made that clear. So we're probably going to be doing some price bumps through the holiday season, try to encourage people to buy before or after, so they're not paying twice as much for shipping, or 35 or 40%, whatever it is actually, for shipping through that time. And we're not giving away 35 or 40% extra to our shipper that does the same service. And it's not like it's better shipping that time of the year. It's the same service. It's just a peak time where they're having to take on a whole bunch of temps and get a lot of volume through in a short amount of time. And so it costs them to run overtime and things like that. And we just got to be a little bit smarter to plan for it.
And you guys, I mean, negotiating your shipping rates, are you able to do negotiation with the FedExes, UPSs of the world?
Yeah, Marshall, you jump on that one.
Yeah. So, and following up on Sean's point too, I mean, if you're shipping, you've got to have some kind of plan built out on like really want to focus on your ground shipment. So wherever you are in the country, like I'm just south of Memphis, Tennessee. So in a 2-day ground radius from UPS, we can reach like 100 million consumers. Obviously, we're nowhere close to that, but it just goes like that's our market. And then you need to build something. That's another advantage of building your platform on Shopify, or not reinventing the wheel like we were talking about on the website design, as those platforms have built-in shipping rules that you can set. So if somebody, you offer free shipping with orders over whatever amount in this 2-day ground zone, if they're beyond that, then you tack on extra shipping to protect you. For us, we'll get like random orders from California. And if we're not, this happened to me this week, if that product has kind of slipped through those shipping rules, suddenly something that should cost us $25 to ship goes 2-day air to California, costs us, $90 to ship. And there goes our whole margin. So you got to be careful with that. And negotiating rates when you're starting out, there's a lot of aggregators out there that take small producers and kind of aggregate them and kind of do that negotiation for you. And then they pocket the different, like some differential on the rate. Unishippers is a huge example of that with UPS. Those guys can come in and take the initial quote that UPS gives you and give you like 20-30% off, but you can keep whittling them down. We haven't been historically very good at this because it takes time and resources, and we're just very understaffed and trying to do too much. But I think Sean sounds like has a lot more experience with that. But yeah, the more you do that and play that game, the better. You would be shocked at how cheap you can get your rates if you're able to effectively get out there and get competitive quotes, and kind of all those guys really want your business. So there's a lot of strategies, and that's a huge part of that cost model is the shipping aspect of it. So you've got to really work on that to bring that cost down.
Great. Chris, I know you're driving there. You may be in the middle of a storm, but feel free to jump in here with anything. But Doug has got another comment. He says 80% of our customers are in New York, and we're in Florida. There's a cold storage in New York who will send out UPS ground to local customers to arrive the following day. Do I need dry ice, liner, etc. if shipping will be 1 day for perishable products?
Yes, you definitely need at least gel packs. There's an aspect to dry ice shipping that's there's an extra cost. There's a surcharge, dry ice surcharge that comes with the carriers because of the risk. It's a hazardous material. So you have to claim it. You have to pay extra for it every box that gets dry ice. So there's an extra cost there on a one day shipment. For the most part, gel packs is going to cover 95% of the year, especially in a northern state like New York. You should be just fine. But you're definitely going to need insulation. You're definitely going to need gel packs at the minimum.
Yeah, and one thing we've noticed, and I don't know, Sean, if you've noticed this, but just it's super hot, like super, super hot down here. And customers are really, if they're entering this market, they're really kind of mistrustful. Like they've never gotten meat in the mail. It seems a little weird. Like they don't really trust it. And the worst thing that can happen is that product to show up hot. Because instead of like this thing they just paid a bunch of money for, they're super excited about coming right from your farm. They've got this hot, stinking, like bloated vacuum sealed bags that they have to dispose of. So we've used a lot of gel packs because they're cheaper or a combination, but our customers just really prefer dry ice. They don't have to get rid of anything, and it makes them feel like it's like, I don't know how we perceive a dry ice, like space age, like super cold. This is like as cold as you can get something, you know? So it adds a lot of that consumer trust, and then they don't have to get rid of the gel packs because those are just kind of, consumers just do not like dealing with those gel packs. So that's just one thing kind of on the customer side that we've noticed.
Yeah,
And
I
I
think
think one thing to consider too, just a second, Sean, is it may be one day delivery, but there's no guarantee that somebody's going to be there to accept that order. They may have gone to work that morning and they're not getting home until later on in the day. So, the risk of that package sitting on somebody's front porch for a few hours. Yeah. In the
Yeah.
Mississippi heat.
yeah, right,
But
exactly.
go
Yeah,
ahead, Sean.
this product is highly perishable and very expensive, right? And so you don't want to be wasteful. It's always, we try to build in an extra day, right? So one day delivery, we pack it for 2 days. If they're not home, if it sits out on the porch, what have you, there's weather delay, mechanical delay. There's all sorts of reasons why 10% of everything you ship is going to be delayed a day at least. Or I should say at least 10% is going to be delayed a day. So packing for 2 days and just building that insurance in. I would say another thing too on that insurance aspect, every carrier is going to offer insurance. That's a revenue stream for them. They're making money on you because your claims are going to be less than what that insurance premium is. So don't buy it off insurance. Just pack for insurance. That's another thing that we've learned along the way. Yeah, shucks. I was going to say something and I just rabbit trailed myself and forgot.
One thing I'll add to that, Sean, that I'm just realizing I don't think we have in place right now, but you can save yourself a lot of customer service calls, which are very time consuming with this type of thing. If you have a little insert in the box, it just lets the customer know like what kind of condition the product is in. Like, hey, if this is slightly thawed out when it arrives and it's still very cold to the touch, it's safe to refreeze. Like we get that all the time. Hey, it was kind of thawed, it still felt really cold. I'm going to put it in my fridge. Just tell them that, we froze it right off production. It's as fresh as the product can be. If it, slightly thawed during packing, it's totally safe to refreeze and then thaw as you want to eat it. Just a little information like the product, the dry ice may be gone. The product should just be cold or very cold to the touch. And, we do this all the time. We promise it's food safe. Here's some resources you can look at and give us a call if you have any questions. Just kind of giving the consumer like what they should be seeing when they open the package will head off a lot of communication that you have to do after the fact.
Yeah, definitely. I was going to say, I just remembered the comment I was going to make here, coming off of, so you have, different effects, I guess, or disruptions in the marketplace, so Apple, for example, they kind of set the bar on, what customer service should look like, or that consumer experience maybe. And then, Amazon on the other side, we say the Amazon effect of everybody wants 2-day shipping. Obviously that's let off a little bit here, but coming out of COVID was really rough because everybody thought it needed to be here the next day. The Amazon effect was in full swing. If it wasn't here, a day or two, it was late. And meat is not like that. If you order, a box on Thursday and it's a 3-day ground shipment, you can't ship it until Monday, and so it's a week later that they receive it. So giving a lot of communication to your customers about what to expect, such as the dry ice or such as the condition of the arrival of the box, is huge. Just setting their expectations out front. Just like the sticker shock on the the homepage, put the price right out front and tell them what to expect, and then you just set that expectation. But coming out of COVID, there was a lot of shippers that everybody jumped on board, and most of them did a really terrible job. So it gave all these people reason to believe that this is going to be a train wreck. And there's very few of us left now that that survived here. There's a lot of people that we know that quit shipping because it was painful, and the shippers didn't help either. They got overwhelmed, and service percentage just fell through the bottom. So anyway, that's, you're fighting some of that battle too of the failures of others.
Let's talk a little bit. We visited yesterday about how quickly you can build a direct to consumer business, and Arthur's asking the question. He said, "Do either of you feel like direct to consumer limits your growth? Does wholesale offer a better avenue for profitable growth?"
Sean, I can take this one first, if you don't mind. I think that the margins and the cash flow are better with the direct to consumer, but the customer acquisition and building volume is much more expensive and time consuming in that channel. So you have the pros and cons there. Wholesale, you can get some good deals in the pipeline and kind of grow quickly, but the margins are really tough. You're getting beat up by pricing. And the cash flow can be really challenging. Wholesale is a cash suck. Remember, you got to spend it all before you get it back. I even, somebody in the space that's a lot bigger than us told me, like, Marshall, you can have a profitable business model and be too reliant on wholesale and screw up your payment terms and go bankrupt with a profitable model because you just cannot cash flow and you're constantly having to borrow money. So I think there's pros and cons of each one. Again, for us running our own plant, we need the wholesale business to get us the volume, and it's reliable, and that's really important, just to pay the light bill, keep the lights on, have something for your staff to do. But the direct to consumer is what we're really putting more energy and focus and growing into. But I think it's also like goes back to this carcass utilization. It's just very complex. You're taking a whole animal and cutting it into 50 SKUs, and we're trying to sell it into like 4 different sales channels. And then you got to figure out some tracking mechanism to see how you're dealing with all that. But I think it would be extremely difficult to operate either model exclusively. And I think you need some mix of both to help you balance the carcass and get volume, especially if you're a meat planter or a processor. So, but yeah, there's a lot of pros and cons to each channel.
So the patient growth too is really healthy. It's, you got to find 20 customers for, to basically sell out of beef. That's a lot of people to find when you start multiplying that by a lot of head per year. So is it quicker on the wholesale side? Absolutely. It's quicker up and quicker down. So and the margin a lot of times it's not as rosy as people think, I think, on the wholesale side, but it's hard to grow a consumer direct model that's profitable. It's hard to do. You just have to be patient, and if you're not patient, it takes a lot of money, and it's to accelerate that process is very expensive, and it'll pay off in the long run if you make it. It might be 5 years or something like that before you actually establish market credibility, because people have to experience a product. They have to experience every aspect for a while before they really truly trust it and begin advocating for you.
Yeah, I think that's
Chris, if you want to go ahead, Marshall. Yep.
I think that's a really good point, Sean, what you're saying. I mean, you can do really resourceful like Facebook, Instagram, kind of guerrilla marketing, just reach out locally and not spend any money. But if you want to hit the gas and you want to like play that game, there's so much that goes into digital ad spend, and you really got to have a way to track that. Because all you're doing at that point is just really tracking data. You're putting content, A/B testing out in front of cold traffic and just seeing what resonates with people, what the conversion percentage is with that offer, and just constantly like reformulating that and trying it again. And you're basically using a digital ad agency to do that. And it's sort of like a pay to play game at that point. Like even to get the data to start figuring out if what you got works, you got to do this for 2-3 months. And that becomes very expensive, like probably $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 over that amount of time just to get your foot in the door to figure out if you got something. So it's much safer to start smaller and try to grow slower and just slowly transition your wholesale business to that higher margin thing if you have that ability. It's a bigger risk the other way, I would say.
Chris, did you have anything you wanted to throw out to Sean and Marshall?
No, they're all great points. The guys are covering a lot of important topics, and one of the things I thought of yesterday was the mixture between wholesale and direct to consumer, and that's a tough one to figure out. The shipping cost is tough for a lot of folks based on where you're at. So I think a lot of our participants are going to see some variable shipping issues depending on where they're located. If you're in California trying to ship it to New York, it's a different challenge than Mississippi to New York or Mississippi to California. So you definitely have to dive into it and try to learn as much as you can before you lose money. And so reach out, ask questions, and we have a lot of resources available, and we'll try to share with you all the folks that we're in connection with to hopefully help you minimize your losses.
Yeah. And somebody just said, is this going to be available to rewatch? Yes, this will be on our website. We archive all of our roundtables here, so you can download them and watch them. Marshall and Sean, one of you mentioned Shopify, but what are some of the platforms out there, some of the tools that are good to use for your online business?
Shopify has been a huge benefit for us. We had a custom built site, several custom built sites over the years, and then in 2016 we switched over to Shopify, and it's been a godsend. It's expensive, but the beauty is every morning you wake up and it's all new again. You have apps, that are live, real time. It's getting there's pretty much an app that you can pay for on a monthly basis. That's really reasonable, $10, $20 a month, something like that. That does a really nice feature that could cost you several $1,000s to get built. And then tomorrow, it's every day that it's aging, essentially, where these apps are constantly getting upgraded and improved, and it's really the way to go from that standpoint. There's others out there. I know, like I think Magento and WooCommerce and or BigCommerce, and what's the other one?
I think
Anyway, is it? Okay. Anyway,
yeah,
there's others. Shopify is where we have focused our energy for a while. We've been really happy with it. Yeah, that's just our experience.
Yeah,
Marshall?
Totally agree. I mean, I was kind of going back and forth between one of the platforms and Shopify, and again, a friend and advisor in the space who's got a lot more experience than me. His point was that, Shopify's got such a huge market share and they grew so quickly through COVID that all the development in the space is happening through them. They've got the best engineers, they got the best software updates, they've got the best plugins. And the really important thing about Shopify is got the built-in analytics. And you're just not going to be able to go out with some engineer you hired to custom build a site that's ever going to come close to that. So I would definitely recommend Shopify. If you're doing a subscription model, we've been through a few of these. I would definitely recommend Recharge. There's a lot of different opinions out there, but I think Recharge kind of the same way. They've really kind of come out ahead of the pack, do a really nice job of just out of the box. You don't want to customize anything if you can avoid it, because then every time there's a theme upgrade or a software update, you have to go back and custom code all that back end. So you have to pay a developer. It's very expensive. So I would recommend Recharge for subscriptions, and then finally for doing one-off little design things and web work and coding, use Upwork. Just get on Upwork and ship it out, and some person in Pakistan will get back to you that you can pay by the hour to just complete this very simple task. And that's a much more, you kind of have to act as your website general contractor, which is a weird step, but you'll save thousands doing that. Just be hey, I need this feature to be built in. Is this possible? And see if someone can get you a bid on that. I don't know, Sean, if y'all use that, but that little Upwork thing has been, and they can do design aspects and whatever. So that was a resource I became familiar with about 1.5 years ago. It's pretty cool. You just bid out jobs and people get back to you. And if you like that one person, you can keep using them for different jobs, just by the hour. So anyway,
Yeah, if you can general the work basically, or do a lot of it yourself, it's a lot more intuitive than people think. I mean, I'm no coder, and I built 98% of our site myself. So takes some time. There's a lot of I would say the imagery aspect is probably one of the most time consuming aspects, to be able to take really good quality products or photos of your products and that are tasteful, that make you want to eat it. That's a different level of of photography, something that you're going to eat and make it look good. So that's definitely one aspect that can be challenging, but you have to do it well in order to be in the direct consumer space.
Risha here says that she uses Barn to Door, which has been pretty good. Says they did the original website build, but we could make adjustments to the website appearance, data, and store. So that's one that she recommends. And we do have some of these platforms in a document that is on our website too, on e-commerce too. We have a little overview of some of those. We're starting to run out of time here, but one thing we didn't talk about yesterday when we were planning this, but has come up every once in a while. What's better, pictures of the raw meat on your website or a cooked finished product? You want a picture of the raw steak that they'll buy, or the steak as it's sitting on a plate next to a baked potato?
Yeah, I think it's both. I guess Marshall, you can say it for sure on what you think there, but I think it goes both ways. People need to know what to expect when it comes in their box, what it's what it's going to look like when they flop it on the grill, and then they need that juicy finished product, because that's what people identify as the standard of what looks good. But I also need to know what it's going to look like when I get it.
I just kind of, as we talk about this a lot too. I think it depends on what you're using the image for. If it's like the header of an email where you're sending out like summer sizzler package or whatever, you don't want to have like pictures of vac-sealed meat there. You want like stuff on the grill, like looking juicy, about to eat. But if they're picking SKUs on your website, it is super important, just like Airbnb and like hotel rooms, that like the product appears exactly how it's going to appear when they get it. Because people need that, realistic expectation of what to receive. So you definitely need both in your arsenal and your marketing, but it just depends on where you plug the image. Raw meat is really hard to make look appetizing. It's very challenging. So definitely for like, the more marketing general things, you use the cooked meat. And then for the SKU pictures on your website, at least one of those, like the header image, needs to be what it looks like when it may be out of the package, then one in the package, and then a cooked one if you really want to spend some money. But they need to know what it's going to look like when it gets in.
Yeah.
Okay, and the last question we'll have for you here is Arthur, you said, with your analytics, can you identify a big concentration of customers that could justify maybe a common pickup delivery service?
Yeah, I think that what we're learning is that the less complicated we make, even if it's costly, like the more streamlined our system is, the easier it is to scale. And I think as you start to really get down the rabbit hole, I mean, other people may totally disagree, but for me personally, I just try to do too much all at once. Like we're doing restaurant deliveries, we have pickup locations, we're working farmers markets, we're shipping meat, we do pickup for animal shares, we run a farm store. It's just like every single one of those channels has a complexity and has an SOP and somebody that has to be responsible for it to get the product and the communication chain. You can definitely do pickup locations. I think it's great. People have built, they're Walden local up in outside of Boston, has like a $30 million business running their own deliveries and vans in New England. I mean, you can do anything. Just simplifying that is going to help your user experience on your website. So if you're just shipping 100% of your stuff, it's pretty easy. Or if they can pick a pickup or shipping, you just got to be careful of what you commit yourself to. And then you're going to have somebody at that pickup location waiting for the entire pickup window. And then you're going to have to do something with the product when they don't pick it up, which is inevitably going to happen, So those little things can just snipe your time and your energy if you're doing too many of them. So I definitely think it's worthwhile to look into, especially starting out, but just be aware of that pitfall.
Yeah. I'd say too, just jumping on that really quick here before we wrap up, but, as with anything, the answer isn't out there. The answer is in here. What are you passionate about? Do you want to be skin to skin with customers? Is that something that's really exciting and motivating for you that you wake up in the morning, you're excited about that, or is that just a complete drain? Because it doesn't matter how much margin is in that business, you're not going to love it. So build a business that you love, which is paired with what you're good at, right? So I think that's the thing, for us, we get excited about a wholesale order. Yeah. Do we get, super excited about our direct to consumer? Yeah, you better believe it. But is it painful? It's painful. And if you don't love it, you're not gonna. So there's other business, there's other essentially brands out there that are similar to us, but they have a different model, and everybody is extremely unique, and you just have to find your path based on what it is that your passion is, and where your strengths and skill sets are, and unfair advantages regionally. You might have some things that the rest of us don't have that you can leverage.
Right. Well, I think that's a good note to end on. And Deborah, I see a question here is for Marshall, but Nikki, if you'll throw up the slide there that has their contact information. There it is. And I think Sean and Marshall would welcome any of you that want to, drop them an email, give them a call, and continue the conversation like everybody else that we've had on our roundtables. They're always willing to help the next person along. That QR code will also take you directly to the resource guide that we have on our website. It's got some good information in that as well. So, Sean, Marshall, any last comments?
I appreciate the time.
Go ahead, Marshall.
You guys.
Okay. So, all right. Well, we're a minute over an hour, so appreciate it. Remember, folks, you will be getting a survey with 2 questions. What did you think about today's roundtable, and what would you like to see us cover? We've got a couple in the works, but I don't have them nailed down enough to promote them right now. So we'll be letting you know that through our newsletter or through an e-blast. And again, this recording will be posted on our website. So if you want to download it, or if you have a friend or a business partner that wants to watch it, it'll be there. So again, Sean and Marshall, thank you very much. This was great information today.
Thank y'all.
So,
Enjoyed it.
have a great day, everybody. Yep. Take care.